All right, good evening and welcome to the Whitman-Hanson Regional Agreement Committee meeting of November 22nd, 2022. We are going to organize ourselves in just a second, but I'm hoping you'll indulge me as the chairperson of the school committee to at least get us going and get moving here until we get to organization. So this meeting is being recorded on WHCA. It is not being streamed live tonight. We're going to look to do that in future meetings. And as we start all of our meetings, if we could just please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So I think as with any committee, probably the first order of business is just to organize. I don't think we have to go too crazy, and I don't think there's anything specific, but I do think we need a chairperson and we need a vice chairperson. We do have the 4 voting members, so I would be looking for those to kind of participate in the process. What I was thinking is we could just motion for a chairperson. If there's more than one, we'll just roll call vote whoever we want and go from there. I am happy to do it, but if someone else wants to do it, feel free as well. So I'm looking for a motion.
Taking nominations? Or?
Yes, so let's open to nominations for chairperson.
I nominate Chris Howard.
Second.
Chair.
Anyone else interested? Okay, so we'll move to the vote. Chris?
Yes.
Yes.
Justin? Jim?
Yes.
Chris, I'll vote yes. Okay, great. I'll try and keep us organized. And then I don't know if we probably should have a vice chairperson just in the event I'm not here, just so we can open meetings and things like that. I'll be here. Anyone interested?
I do it.
Nominate Chris Scriven. Second.
Anyone else? Great. We'll do roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Chris, yes. Great. If everything goes that easy going forward, we'll be all set.
It's great.
All right, so in terms of the agenda tonight, again, didn't want to be too presumptuous in terms of what we were trying to do. Figured let's get together, if nothing else, and kind of get the process started. Before I get too far ahead, I don't have the list. You have the list in front of me. Yep. But just real quick, we can probably go around. I think everyone knows everyone, but I don't want to, again, presume. So we do have folks from different towns, and we do have a couple folks that aren't here that we'll point out. But maybe if we don't mind going around, just who you are and who you're representing.
Lisa Green, Town Administrator, representing Hanson.
Kathleen Otina, Whitman Finance Committee.
Jeff Semenak, Superintendent of Schools.
Chris Howard, School Committee.
Jim Hickey, Select Board.
Justin Evans, Select Man. Yeah.
John Stambrook, Director of Business and Finance.
Chris Scriven, Vice Chair, School Committee.
Okay, and so the way we organized it, we do have the 4 voting members. We have non-voting members, but we're looking for that participation as well. And then in terms of folks that aren't here, we have Frank Lineman, who is the acting town administrator from Whitman. Frank did have another engagement tonight. George Farrow, who's the assistant superintendent, and he had a personal appointment tonight. And then Mike Dugan, who is going to be representing us on behalf of the Hanson Finance Committee. The one thing Mike said to me is they appointed him, but they may be rotating some folks through. So, you know, I don't think that's going to be a huge problem. It's a non-voting position, so he asked that I asked him to share it, but the fact that he's not here, I just kind of wanted to share that with the committee, set the expectation. Again, I don't think that that's an issue. Certainly, we'd rather have folks here than not. Okay, so light agenda, trying to get together. I think one of the things that we wanted to kind of get out of the way early on was just the role of Mars or other third-party consultants. So we did use Mars in the past to kind of help us through the process. We haven't engaged with them formally in this process. We had some conversations in school committee. Some members had expressed some interest in getting them involved. But I think the response that we had at that time was, well, this is the regional agreement committee, so let's let this committee decide before we get too far. So kind of open that up. Folks have thoughts. Do we want to kind of bring them in and hear what they have to say? We don't have to do that necessarily right away, but I do, if we are going to use them in some capacity, I'd like to reach out and give them a heads up. So thoughts? Anyone have thoughts? Chris?
I think it would be a good idea to bring them in, and just kind of get their take on things, and, you know, just as a resource, it would be a good idea.
Yeah, and if it is the intent of this committee to begin from the draft amended document that's kicked around a bit where Mars was heavily involved in that, I think it would make sense to bring him back in. Not to presume the intent of the committee, but that would be helpful.
I was here in 2017. Chris, I can't remember if you were part of that.
I was. Yep,
Okay,
different
so
capacity, but there, yep.
you know, and Jeff, you were part of that. Oh, you weren't? Okay, Ruth was still here. They were good in some aspects, and when I say Mars as a whole, the two gentlemen.
Steve and Mac.
Yes. I wouldn't mind Mars, but I really don't want those two gentlemen back because they had information which I believe they withheld from that group at the time, which caused all the problems at the very end when we thought we had it all done.
Sure. Okay.
So, you know, I'm good with Mars, but
Maybe someone different.
maybe different representatives from the company.
Okay.
I'll see what I read.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I want to make sure everyone, I hear where you're going, but hold on. Any
If
other
the
thoughts?
starting point is the 2017 proposed regional agreement that was not ultimately accepted by both towns, and that a lot of that, as you said, Jim, was, I watched the videos of the folks from Mars. I think they should be on call, but anything we come up with is going to have to meet DESI's approval. So having consultants handy to ask them questions or run things by them, I think is worthwhile.
Okay. Lisa, anything additional, different?
Well, I think at least having someone that was part of the 2017 committee has a history, and they have historical information and knowledge that could be very beneficial. Apart from not having those two people, if they had a different team, it could only be beneficial if we're trying to understand some history and knowledge behind it.
Yeah, so, and I did think about this quite a bit from the conversations we've had over the last couple months. So I do think there's some value, as we've all talked about, in having them there. But I think the one thing when I thought about how we did it last year, I think we kind of got too much into the sequencing of the agreement itself, and we missed the opportunity to maybe just talk about. So I guess what I would propose, and this is probably radical, is let's just get the tough stuff out of the way first, right? Because if you're in the agreement and we're in like section 1, it's like, who cares? And then we get to section 2 and we're good. And then all of a sudden we get to section 15 and or page 10 and we're like, now there's contention, and we got to figure it out. But now what we're figuring out actually affects everything from the 9 pages prior. To me, and this is what I was going to suggest to every member here, to kind of go back to their boards, and we'll get to this in the agenda in a second, is go back and what are the big things that we want to accomplish? What are the things we want to tackle? Deal with that first. Between Mars and the attorneys, we can get the language right. But right, it's the conceptual stuff, because Mars isn't going to sit here and be like, hey, here's how to handle X. They're going to say, here's the language, now go figure it out, right? They're not here to make the decisions on behalf of the towns. They're simply here to facilitate. So I like the idea. If everyone's okay with it, we'll reach out, we'll let them know we're working on it. Maybe to Jim's point, let's see if maybe they have some different folks, a fresh set of eyes. But I think before we actually bring them in and start say, here's the 2018 agreement, let's go through the lines and let's go through the legal requirements, like why don't we all take a step back and be like, what are the big things that, you know, whether it's through the lens of the finance committee or the towns, town administrators, the various boards, what are the things that we think we need to deal with? And let's just deal with them. Because if we do that, and we kind of, I don't think I'm talking out of school, like when we've done some negotiations of late, we just put the big stuff out in front, because once you get through that, then it takes some time and it's tough, but once you get through the rest of it kind of flows, opposed to like, well, we all know we're going to deal with that, but we're going to deal with that at the end. It's like, well, now the whole thing we just spent 3 months, then we go backwards. So I don't know if folks are okay with that type of thought process.
Absolutely.
Is there a risk of the inverse happening though? Is it one of the things that we work out
There is.
going to be a no-go?
There is. And that's why I think, again, I don't think we need an exhaustive list of like, you know, what are the 32, but, you know, if everyone maybe goes back to their boards and are like, hey, what are the things we need to focus in on? And we maybe get some conceptual thought. Again, I don't think we need to agree on language, to your point, but we get conceptual buy-in of, because I'm not going to presuppose, you know, what that board wants, or that board wants, or this group, or that, like, I don't know. But I think if we start there and have that conversation, again, maybe that means we bring Mars in to talk about the language, but I don't know, I'm not excited about the first meeting, we pull up the 2018 agreement, and it's like, this is what line 1 says. Are we good? Let's vote on it. Line 2, and then we never really read it, and we never really dealt with the issue. So if that works for everyone, does that sound okay? So let's reach out to Mars, see if there's a couple different people, and then we kind of, so for what I was thinking, and again, I didn't want to be presumptuous here, but when Jeff and I talked and we were talking about this objectives of the committee initial discussion, to me, the first thing is we're all representing various boards, so maybe have those executive sessions and conversations with those groups to say, what are the 2, 3, 4, 5 big things that you think we need to deal with? Because if we all bring those together and figure it out, again, not like the answer, but like, here's the question. Like, we need to deal with this area, right? So, and I've heard enough that I could give examples, but I prefer not to, because I think everyone's gonna do their own thing. So, if we do that, then I think we can come up with, obviously, the simple objective of our committee is to get a new agreement done, right? It's a pretty simple objective, but I think what I was hoping we could kind of talk through and agree to is, let's go back and have that conversation with our respective groups that we're representing and say, hey, what do you want? What are the things that we need to hammer out? Not necessarily the answers, but the things that we need to talk about, right? Like, so I don't think it's like, hey, this is the problem and this is the solution, but hey, on behalf of the Whitman Select Board or the Hanson Select Board or the school committee, like, this group should be charged with having a discussion about blank. When we have a discussion, right? And then we can kind of go in there. So I see nodding heads, that's good. Anything in addition in terms of objectives that you want to accomplish? Besides kind of obviously pulling the agreement together and representing groups. What I didn't know is, like, I don't know how far along groups are. So if we want to get right into, hey, we've already talked about this, this, and this. I know as a school committee we haven't, but kind of open it up. We're all kind of okay with the path we're going there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, simple enough. All right, and in terms of materials, so what Michelle did for us is we've created a Google Drive. So I know not everyone's loves technology, but we'll start here, and then we can certainly do paper as we go if anyone wants it or needs it. But basically, you should have all received an email, and if you didn't, just stay after, and we'll make sure you have the email, and even next meeting if you want to bring a device, or if we need to print stuff, I'm sure we can print stuff too. But for folks that want it,
And if somebody needs a device, I can get them a
or
device
if they
for
need
this.
even better, if you need to borrow a device, we
If
can
you
let
need a
you borrow
device for something, I can get us a device. So
Yeah.
just let us know afterwards.
That's a great point. But basically, in the drive right now, there's 3 things. So there is the original agreement that is binding between the 2 towns. There is the amendment or amended agreement that we went through when we did our last pseudo negotiation with our financial compromise. And then there is the 2018 most current draft that went before both towns. So everyone can read that. That's probably worth reading. We can certainly, again, whatever people's preference are, we can certainly kind of read through it together if we needed to, like, hey, this is the first paragraph, anyone have any questions? Or, again, everyone can read it on their own. But what we'll do is we'll keep that Google Drive current. So if we have a presentation, if we have handouts, if we have materials to be made available in advance of the meeting, it'll all go there. That way you can all read it before the meeting and you're not, coming in here blind or wasting time and stuff like that. So that should help the process along. Good there?
That's good.
And we have some Chromebooks if anyone needs one. We'll just ask for it back. So other than that, really it's probably about, this will be the hard part, right? Trying to find a future sequence of dates that work. That makes sense. So I think maybe we want to probably have a little bit of time to allow the conversation. So what I'm going to ask Jeff to do based upon this conversation is at our next school committee meeting on the 7th, we're going to have an executive session where we're going to talk about the regional agreement. So I think every board group probably needs an opportunity to do that. And then ideally to me, if we could just find maybe a night and kind of block it off. And I think, I'm not a fan of having a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting. So if we can find a night maybe that works and a time that works, we'll kind of, in a start date, we kind of block that going forward. And I think I have had some loose conversations with people before we even formed this around, it seemed like the general consensus was, let's get this done. Let's not meet like once a month. You know, get some momentum, then a month passes, then we pick up where we left off. You know, I forget what we were doing, you forget what we're doing, we spend half the time, like, let's just get it done. So if we set up a, you know, hey, you know, we're gonna start on this date, and it's gonna be this day of the week, and it's gonna be this time, and we're gonna block that going forward, you know, in a perfect world, maybe it's, I don't know, I hesitate to throw, it's 8, 9, 10 meetings, and we're done, right? But we're done, and it's in a position to go to maybe both towns for town meetings. Does that sound generally okay? Yes, John?
What's the time frame that we're looking at? Are we trying to get it on the May town meeting? Or is it
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that's the objective. I think everyone would. I don't think anyone would be against that. But I think we got to do it well. So I think given where we, from my perspective only, given where we've been and what we've done, it's going to be more important to do it right than it is going to be to do it fast. At the same time, again, like, I'm not a fan of, you know, let's meet once a quarter for the next 3 years, and sometime in 2027 we'll have it. And like, what are we doing, right? Like, at this point. So I think if we can get it for the May town meeting, that would be great. But I also want to be careful not to put a timeline on top of us, and then, you know, we as a group are going to really need to find consensus. We're going to need to work with our boards, understand, and then find consensus. Because if we can do that, then we'll hopefully get to town meeting and it'll pass. If we don't do that, it probably won't even make it out of the boards. Like, it won't even make it to town meeting. So hopefully we can build consensus. Chris?
On that point, should we be looking at the respective boards' dates
Yeah,
at
that's,
this point, and then meet after, so they have an opportunity to...
yeah. Yeah, so do you think, so when do you both meet next?
The 6th.
13.
So 13th and
We meet the 7th.
yeah, we're going to be the easiest one. We're the
Right.
7th. So 13th, do you know when?
No.
Do you have anything
No.
scheduled?
I think the 20th is scheduled for budget managers to start meeting with us, and we meet on Tuesdays.
Okay. So we're probably looking at a January start date, I would guess, to give
and I
everyone
mean,
time.
you know, we're all going to be busy through the holidays with our own,
That's-
you know,
Yes.
meetings and committees, that we get a chance to sit down and for us, I think, Lisa, we have the 6th and the 13th, so that we could end up all doing it, you know, at our December meeting. We come here in January, and you know, I know, Chris, you and I have talked about, let's get it done, but get it done right. We don't have to get it done fast. But if it's not done for May, and Desi will take a long time to look at this whole thing over, that maybe it's ready in October. But for us, whether it's 8, 10, or 12 consecutive weeks,
Right.
whatever it is, we do it and get it done. I mean, you know, John excluded, honestly, there's a lot of pressure on the 4 voting members of this committee, I believe, because, you know, you guys represent Whitman and Chris and I represent Hanson, but it's not about that. It's about the kids and making sure they're educated, and not that I want to, you know, flip my cards too early, but I have to watch out for the citizens of Hanson, just like Justin's going to do for Whitman. So we have to come up with a plan, and that's why I would suggest we go back to the boards. We all enjoy the holidays, and, you know, we come in here ready to work, which is why we were elected to these positions, and get the jobs done that need to be done. So,
Sounds good.
okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good. All right. So let's maybe work on, again, this is the part I was, so far everything's going nice, but let's see if we can get a day of the week, because I know you all do a lot of different things. I'm thinking we probably want to avoid Tuesdays and Wednesdays
Yes.
right out of the gate.
Why Wednesdays?
Well,
know you
or
have
at least
school.
some Wednesdays because of school committee. But we don't have to avoid all the Wednesdays. But
It's not great for me.
What isn't?
Wednesday's not great for
Okay.
me.
Okay. We can-
Oh, Wednesday's perfect for me.
And we can do Wednesday.
I can make it work, but I
right,
usually
and just
involve a
with the
babysitter,
caveat, right? So we start the budget season for school committee. Now we're going to start in December. So Wednesdays in January and February and March, we can. if we were to do, that's why I'm sorting out Wednesdays, we're gonna have school committee meetings probably every other week. Probably January, February, March, so unless you think otherwise.
I'm just looking, we meet on the 11th, and then we have a joint committee meeting on the 12th scheduled,
Yes.
which is
Yep.
Thursday, so
Yep.
just bear that in mind.
Yep.
as we-
Yeah. But what, so I'll throw out, I mean, how about Mondays? Do people have a lot of stuff going on Mondays?
If we can go at 5:30, that's ideal.
You have to get,
I don't,
let her get a
if we go
babysitter.
later,
Yeah.
I get into trouble.
Sure.
My wife usually tutors, she's not there.
And if we can go earlier, if we can do a 5, that would be better.
Usually Wednesdays, my wife tutors, so.
Can we do Monday? Mondays are good. Mondays are good. Mondays are good.
Yeah.
Chris, can you get here by 5? Or is
Yeah.
barely?
Can we do time-wise 5?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Holy crap.
And I can say that for more likely
All right.
than not George.
So we'll shoot for Mondays at 5. And again, I think when we meet on the Monday at 5, we can probably make a determination. Again, I don't, if it's, hey, I need to take this back, we got to a point where we need to take this back to our boards, then we don't need to meet the following Monday. But I think it's a lot easier for us to all block Mondays at 5 and know we have the commitment and cancel and get the time back than, well, I think I'm meeting this Monday, but now I have this, so great. Mondays at 5.
Yeah, because we will have to post, but we can always
Cancel or
cancel.
non-post.
Okay.
Yes.
Unless, John, can you watch Justin's Baby on Wednesdays? Can make it? No?
I can get somebody here.
All right, bring 'em.
I wouldn't be comfortable either, Justin.
So Mondays at 5, when do we want to start? There is a holiday on January 16th. But we could meet, for example, on the 9th and use that and maybe just plan on not meeting the 16th because of the holiday.
Yeah.
And then
If,
just block Mondays going forward.
yeah, but if we meet on the 9th and we could bring back anything to our,
Yes.
Yes. respective committees
Yes.
to come back on the 24th or 23rd.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least that would give us the first 2.
And like I said, I would block what I'm going to do. You all can do your own thing. I'm going to block basically every Monday from the 9th for a few months, and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. I don't think we'll need all of them, but again, I just know my schedule. If I block it, I'm always happy when a meeting gets canceled and I get time back with my kids.
Yes.
But when I have the commitment with my kids, then it's hard to say, yeah, we're not doing it. So perfect. So we have 5 o'clock on the 9th, and we'll have 5 o'clock on the 23rd, and we will plan on just doing Mondays at 5 from that point forward. I also think that makes it easy for the public, which I want to get to in a second. People want to attend. It's a lot easier knowing like they're meeting at this day, at this time, opposed to we meet Tuesday, we meet Thursday. It's hard. So, and then the last item, it wasn't on the agenda, but I'm going to take the liberty of, because we had a lot of conversations about this in school committee and when I went to both boards. Anyone have any objection to make sure we have public comment on the agenda for every meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll, right, because I think that was important. We said if anyone wants to participate in this process, so we'll put it on at the end, we will make sure that every meeting at the end, we'll leave time for public comment so that if folks want to participate in this process, we'd absolutely be more than happy to encourage that. So we'll keep that as a standing agenda.
Just for scheduling, hour and a half, kind of, you know what I mean? Because what I have to do is, the 5 o'clock works, but I need to know who's going to pick up my daughter from dance.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those, if we go late, yeah, right.
Yeah,
But
no,
I'm looking at an hour and a half meeting, or sometimes longer.
I think if just going by school committee, like once we get to 2 hours, I don't know about you guys, but it starts to get a little much. So I think if we shoot for hour and a half.
Perfect.
And because we're going to be meeting every week, it's not
Yes,
like,
that's why
it's
I'm
not like we
saying
have to
that,
go
you know.
all night. So that sounds great.
Thank you.
Chris, you got something? Okay. Other than that, I think we're in good shape. So good. We're off to the races.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
Is it fair to think that if you read through the 2018 draft that didn't get supported by both towns, but it was close, that would not be a bad place to start as opposed to the 1992 agreement?
Yeah. So I think the hard part is, I think we all need to read the original one,
Yep.
right? Because it's the one that's binding.
Yep.
So what I'm trying to avoid is a situation where there's maybe like what appeared to be a technical correction in the 18 that maybe was a big. So I think we all need to read the original,
Yep.
and then I think if we just come back with, right, here's the topic, here's the issue. here's, so you want to deal with X. Well, X can be found on page 3 of the old and on page 7 of the 18.
Okay.
We can kind of read it there, make sure we're all on the same page, and then talk about the topic. I agree, like, I think that would be a good starting point, but I also want to be careful of,
Let's not presume anything, so.
right, like, let's deal with,
We've read
let's.
them all already, but.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, some of them are, some of that language I feel like is committed.
Kathleen, I think we spent a half a meeting discussing the Park School being closed and McQuon, which to me, that was a waste of a whole month because we only met once a month. And, just to even bring, it just should have been 5 minutes, cross them off, let's move on. But we spent about a half an hour to 40 minutes. So, we don't need to review
We don't
this.
have to reinvent the wheel, but we'll start with,
I think we can start with what are the topics people want to get through, and let's see, so we're gonna, this is a wonderful honeymoon that we all enjoyed here, coming together and enjoying each other's company and all agreeing. We'll get to the next one and we start hammering out, like, here's the issue, that's it, and I think that's fine, but we'll get through that, and once we kind of maybe conceptually can get to those points, then I think we can have that conversation of, okay, can we start with maybe the 18 agreement, and maybe that's where we do a compare and make sure we're good as we go. But there's got to be, to Justin's point, I mean, it's not like we're going to sit here and have a meeting and we're going to have 5 big issues and we're going to get through them all, and then there's still going to be something that's going to pop up. It just
have at the end.
But I think we can't control what we can't control, but we can control the things that, are within our power. If we say, we know that the Hanson or select board wants us to talk about this because they feel it's an issue, then let's talk. And same with all the other respective, let's just deal with it. Deal with it, try and work through it. Again, I'm sure it'll have some spirited conversations when we get there, and that's fine, but let's just get it out of the way. So, awesome.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, with that said, we can take a motion to adjourn unless anyone has anything for us. Second. All those in favor? All right, wonderful. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. See you on Monday night.